Singapore is one of the richest countries on Earth. Despite being just 728 square kilometers, its economy is worth $360 billion. That means that if Singapore were a country with the same size as the UK, its GDP would be around $23 trillion. For context, this would make it wealthier than every single G8 nation except for the USA. But how did it get so rich? Well, in today's video, we're going to find out exactly that. We'll look at how it went from a colonial trading post to becoming Asia's most dominant financial center in just a few decades. And then we'll end the video by looking at the challenges ahead and how the brand new Prime Minister Lawrence Wong might deal with them. You don't have long to get started. Let's get into it. So let's begin with a little bit of history. Singapore became a British colony back in 1881. At the time, it was just a small fishing village, but thanks to its strategic location along major trading routes, it was able to quickly grow and develop. By the end of World War II, however, it had become a war-torn ruin. Its population had been decimated by disease and war, and the local economy was in sharp decline. Thankfully, though, Singapore was handed over to a visionary leader named Lee Kuan Yew. He would go on to lead the city for the next 36 years, steering it through some of its most crucial moments. Under his leadership, Singapore gained independence from the Dutch in 1965 and then joined the United Nations. 2 years later, by 1973, it had become a republic within the Commonwealth. Then in 1985, it was transformed into a highly developed country. Today, it's often used as an example of how other small nations can achieve rapid economic growth. So, here's how it did it. The first key to understanding Singapore's success is its commitment to free market. In fact, it's often referred to as a capitalist paradise. Why? Well, that's because it has some of the lowest tax rates and minimal regulations in the world. The government doesn't interfere much with its markets. Instead, it focuses on creating an environment where businesses can flourish. This is why many multinational companies base themselves there. Some of the world's largest corporations call it home, including companies like Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. All these companies are attracted to its business-friendly environment. But it isn't just foreign investors that flock to Singapore. Local entrepreneurs also love it there. For example, the unemployment rate is incredibly low, sitting at just 2%, and that's because companies are given the freedom to hire and fire workers without much hassle. Likewise, they can also start and scale their businesses with ease. What's more, the government supports innovation and creativity by offering grants and subsidies to startups. It's no surprise then that Singapore is one of the most competitive economies in the world. The second key to Singapore's success is its status as a global hub. Now, this isn't something that Singaporeans take for granted. They know that their entire economy could collapse if they ever lost their status. This is why they work hard to maintain and improve it. For example, they've invested heavily in education and training to ensure that they have the skilled workforce that's needed to support a thriving economy. What's more, they've also made significant investments in infrastructure. The Changi Airport, for example, is one of the busiest in the world, and the city's public transportation system is some of the best. Of course, it helps that Singapore is such a small country. It means that wherever you are, you're never too far away from a train station or an airport. Finally, Singapore has worked hard to create a business-friendly environment. As we covered earlier, it's got some of the lowest taxes and least regulations in the world, and that makes it a great place for businesses to set up shop. The third key to Singapore's success is its political system. Now, we're not going to dive too deep into this one because it's a rather controversial topic. But basically, the government of Singapore is highly efficient. There's little to no corruption, and it's able to get things done quickly. This has allowed Singapore to attract top talent from all over the world. If you're a highly skilled worker, then you want to live in a place where your talents will be appreciated. You also don't want to waste your time dealing with bureaucracy or corruption. So you're more likely to move to a country like Singapore, which has a reputation for efficiency and competence. And the fourth key to Singapore's success is its people. The Singaporeans are known for their hard work, their dedication, and their willingness to embrace change. It's this attitude that has allowed the country to thrive. In recent years, though, this has become somewhat of a problem. While the government has done a great job of attracting top talent, it's become increasingly difficult to retain that talent. That's because younger generations of Singaporeans are starting to feel the pressure of working in such a high-pressure environment. Many of them are looking to move to other countries where they can enjoy a better work-life balance. Now let's talk about the challenges ahead. So Singapore has done a lot of things right. However, it's important to remember that no country is perfect, and Singapore is no exception. In recent years, it's faced a number of challenges that threaten its economic future. Let's cover 3 of them. First, the cost of living is rising. Like most countries, Singapore experienced a period of inflation in the last couple of years. However, unlike most countries, it hasn't really let up. In fact, inflation in Singapore has been on the rise for over a decade, and now it's one of the most expensive cities in the world. This is a problem for several reasons. For starters, it makes it harder for businesses to operate. And that's because when prices are rising, businesses have to raise their prices too. Otherwise, they'll go out of business. But raising prices isn't always possible, especially in industries like technology where consumers are very price sensitive. What's more, a high cost of living also makes it less attractive for top talent to move to Singapore. After all, why would you move to a country where your salary will only be eaten up by high prices? The second challenge facing Singapore is an aging population. Now, this is a problem that many developed countries face. However, it's particularly acute in Singapore. That's because Singaporeans generally have a low birth rate. In fact, in 2022, Singaporeans gave birth to just 1.14 children each, one of the lowest rates in the world. This has led to a rapidly aging population, and by 2030, it is estimated that 1 in 4 Singaporeans will be over the age of 65. This poses a number of challenges for Singapore. For example, an aging population means that there are fewer and fewer workers to support the growing number of retirees. This puts a strain on the economy. And it also means that the government has to spend more on healthcare and pensions. The third challenge facing Singapore is its dependence on foreign workers. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it's been a key to Singapore's success. However, it does pose a risk. That's because if Singapore ever loses its appeal as a destination for foreign workers, its economy could collapse. For example, around half of Singapore's workforce is made up of foreign workers. Many of them come from neighboring countries like Malaysia and Indonesia. These workers are employed in a variety of sectors, including construction, manufacturing, and domestic work. Now, this isn't a problem in itself. In fact, it's been crucial to Singapore's growth. However, it does pose a risk. That's because if these workers ever stopped coming to Singapore, its economy would be in trouble. For example, if there was a political or economic crisis in Malaysia or Indonesia, it could cause a mass exodus of Singapore's foreign workforce. This would put a huge strain on the Singaporean economy. So those are some of the challenges facing Singapore. But what is the solution? Well, that's up to the newly appointed Prime Minister, Lawrence Wong. He took office from Hsien in May 2023. Now we're not going to pretend that we know anything about politics. But one thing we do know is that change is inevitable. No matter how good a job Lee Kuan Yew did, Singapore wouldn't be the same under his son. This is simply because the world has changed. The global economy, geopolitics, and even the attitudes of Singaporeans have all changed dramatically since Lee Kuan Yew first took office. This is why it was so important for Singapore to have a new leader, someone who could take Singapore in a new direction and address some of the challenges we outlined earlier. So what can we expect from the new Prime Minister? Well, that remains to be seen. However, we do know that he faces some huge challenges. If he can navigate these challenges successfully, Singapore will continue to thrive. But if he fails, it could be the beginning of the end for the Lion City. Thank you for watching.